Alrighty, guys, welcome to our 2-month mark for the Tech Bytes online sessions. And welcome to the 8th week specifically of the Python session. We're glad to have you back for one last Tech Bytes session of the month of July. As always, if you guys don't know us by now, what are we doing? My name is Rayan Siddiqui. I'm rising senior at James B. Conant High School. You've seen our passion. You can check more about me at rayansiddiqui.com. And you know my partner, Andrew.
All right. Yes, my name is Andrew. And just as we said earlier, I will be attending Purdue University next month, in fact, which is why will be going to be my second last slide, but I think we'll get to that part in the presentation soon. I'm a computer graphics enthusiast. I particularly like how computers render things. I know quite a bit of programming languages, just like Rayon. I've illustrated as on the side. You can check out what I do at my website, andrewchoi.info.
All right, so for today's agenda, looks a bit slim, but we'll eventually get into a bit more deep. Firstly, we got some quick updates just to give you guys a refresher on what's going to be happening with the future in case you have any further questions. And then we'll make our transition into further typing and some more programming concepts with Python. So the first update, Andrew.
Yeah, I will be departing next week. Particularly if any of you are involved in the bi-weekly trivia night. There will be a trivia night on August 7th. And that will actually be the last day you will be seeing me. I am technically, if you're just doing it for Tech Bytes, I will be on the Wednesday Tech Byte meeting on August 5th. But for the most part, once that week of August has passed, I will be not close. I will not be attending any of these Zoom meetings for the library. I will be resigning.
Yep, so it will be a sad goodbye, but guys, we have Andrew and I the power combo is together for one more week till next week. So you guys take in as much knowledge as you guys can for the next couple of weeks. So until we have to say goodbye. And second update, as we were talking about before we started the meeting, that is that this course, the Python curriculum course, will be available under Intro to Programming now. And you must sign up for this course like you did initially way back in May for the Python and JavaScript sessions. You must sign up again, likewise, on the library's website. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot us on an email, or you can post in the Google Classroom if you can't find the link. But Andrew and I will post a link to the direct sign up. As always, you can find it under Intro to Programming.
All right, so we have learned about typing variables, creating functions within Python typing. Now we are going to use some other stuff that is usually used in typing. We are going to talk about loops and lists, and we will see how they connect with each other very soon.
All right, so let's talk about loops. Now, if you remember in Python, in any language, there's two types of loops. First, we're going to be talking about the for loop. Now, if you remember what we were doing with block code, we could use the for loop to iterate and go up to a certain number of times. So say in this scenario, we can see that the syntax is as follows. You simply write the word still for, then you have whatever variable you want, say x in this situation, which is going to represent the value over which you're iterating. And then in range, and then you put the parentheses along with however many times you want to iterate. So since I'm putting 0 to 10, that's a range, meaning this code will run 10 times because 10 minus 0 is 10. And Python is exclusive of the second digit, which is why if you look over to the right at the console, once we print the variable x, we see the values 0 through 9 being printed. And the reason why the number 10 is not being printed is because 10 is exclusive. And basically what that means is that 10 is not going to be included. Now, if we have a list, which we will talk about further on today of how to actually type out the list, we can use a different type of for loop and simply create a variable called, say we have a list of fruits. Then we can call this a fruit item. And then inside the fruit array, we can iterate or go over each individual fruit in the fruit array. Now, this is a bit confusing. Don't worry. We have some actual examples, which we'll go in much more in depth, and we'll be typing it out as well. So notice how that there are different ways to write out for loops. And let's not forget about those while loops. Andrew?
All right, while loops. Now, similar to for loops, which usually have some type of range, while loops have a condition that is evaluated, and if it's false, it will cut the loop. For loops, we are very familiar with this. If the variable, can we go to the previous slide real quick to illustrate this?
What's up, Andrew?
Could you go to the previous slide, because I'm just doing a comparison real quick. For loops, this condition is that the variable is lower than the actual value. So for the end of the range, so x lower than 10. Let's go to the while loop. For while loops, we have the x lower than 10, but that condition can be really anything. It could be x is not an even number, or x is greater than 7, or so on and so forth. So in terms of how we actually write that down, we write the while space and then the actual condition. And after this condition, the colon. And what we see here is a great example of that. This should be equivalent to what the for loop does. It will print from 0 to 9 inclusive, 0 to 10 exclusive, and it will print those values. And once that x gets to 10, it will cut the loop. And yeah, that should be how you write it.
And here is the third example we were talking about. So we've talked about loops, and loops and list usually go really nicely together, because the more you program, you'll learn that you often use loops in order to loop over an array or a list, because you want to get certain values at certain indexes. So we can take a look at how we simply type out a list in Python. That being, since Python syntax is super easy and types are assigned automatically, we just put the name of the variable which we want to hold our array. Then we use this bracket, which is usually at the top right of your keyboard if you're having trouble finding it. And then since this is going to be a word, or aka string, we're going to use quotations around it. And then we can add, say it's like a fruit list, we add some fruits like banana, apple, and orange. And then remember that for loop idea, which we had 2 slides ago. If we have a list, we can just call, we can use this type of for loop. Well, if we go back, we can simply say for the fruit variable inside our fruit list, print each fruit out. And what is printed out? Each fruit, because that is the value at each index in that array. And we can actually see to the right of actually how we're writing out an array or a list in Python. And it's super simple.
All right, now that we have gone over the various concepts in typing the loops and lists, let's actually implement them in the website. You can see right there with the link. So go to that link real quick, and we will be starting that typing session.
Yep, and the link is dropped in the chat, guys, if you guys have not favorited or bookmarked. All right, so if everybody could let us know that they are in, and then we can get started. All right. So how about we get some practice in with actually typing different types of for loops? So how about we first try our hand at a regular in range type of for loop and set a condition of how many times we want it to run. So let's get started. So basically, guys, if you guys remember from the slides, we just type the word for, and we'll call our variable. In this case, we'll just say x. Remember, this is the variable which represents our values. And then we simply write in range, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and then we simply enter a range of how many times we want this for loop to execute. To say we wanted to run 5 times, we'll just do 0 through 5. Now, if we want to print out the numbers 0 through 5, we will have to change this last number to a 6, because remember, the Python is exclusive of the second value, which is why in this case, if you want to print out 0 through 4, we do till 5, or if you want to do 0 through 5, we do till 6. So for now, let's do 5. And there we go. Remember, since this is Python, we're going to be using a colon, and then hit enter. And just for some visual purposes, we can print out our values and see that they go from 0 to 4. And there we go. You can see that in the console, what is being printed out is values of the variable x from 0 through 4. Now, how about we get in some practice with a while loop? So we can just do, you can delete that line of code or you can comment it out. Basically what commenting out does, guys, it makes sure that your code is still there, but it's not going to execute because it's commented out and the computer is not going to read it essentially. If you want to know how to do that, you can do, I believe it's control / on PC or command / on Mac. So how about we try a while loop? Now remember, in a while loop, we're not defining our variable in the same line like we did here. We actually first have to explicitly say what our variable is. So how about we make something where a while loop will keep on continuing. A while loop will print. How about we use some logic and a while loop? We'll start a value. We'll start with a variable at a value, say like 100, and then we'll decrease the value of our variable. And if our variable is divisible by 2, we'll print it out. So how about we start off with a variable called number. We'll say number, and we'll call it, and we'll assign a value of 100 to it. Now remember, a while loop syntax is different than that of a for loop, in that sense that we have to type out while our number, that being the variable right here, is greater than, say, we'll go 0, colon, enter. Now here's where some logic will come into place. We want to print out our number variable only whenever it's divisible by 2. Well, how can we check if a number is divisible by 2? Now we could do, if we do some operation, we could just do number divided by 2, but that wouldn't really work because that's not actually checking if a number is divisible by 2. Well, in programming, there's something called modulus or mod, which we can use to check if a number is divisible by something. And basically what modulus does is, should we pull up the whiteboard to explain this concept?
Sure. I recommend getting out the clock visual. That's pretty classic for this type of thing.
Oh, yes. All right, so I'll give you a remote control and as well if you want to hop in.
Sure.
So basically, this is the idea, guys. We have mod, and through using mod, we can check if if there is going to be any remainder through a division process. So if we want to give an example.
All right. I'm just list out some numbers. This will make it easy for us. So let's say you had a lot of numbers. Here's what the modulo does. Let's say you have something like 0 mod, and we are putting 2 because we're asking a question of, is it divisible by 2? That will equal 0. If we have 1 mod 2, that will equal 1. If we have 2 mod 2, we have 0. And can someone guess what number 3 will equal? I don't actually have access to the chat. Can someone
Here, yes. If anybody has a guess of what will 3 mod 2 equal, and if you can pick up on the pattern. 1 second. I gotta check what somebody's saying on the chat.
Yeah, someone said something.
Yeah.
Pranav says 1, and you are correct. All right, so think of modulo like a clock, if you will. When you're counting time and you have something like, say, how many hours is 5 minutes? Sorry, not 5 minutes. Like 200 minutes. It's sort of. Sorry, let me like do you have a erase tool?
Yeah. Yep. Here we go.
So the way we would actually use this to find like 2, I'll talk about the clock thing later, is that you would use what the result of the modulo is. So for instance, if it is 0, then it is evenly divided by 0. This goes back to what Rayan said about the remainder. The way the way the modulo works is that it gives the remainder, and the remainder, if it's 0, means that it's divisible by 2. The best way I can put it is, imagine you had a clock, right? And you say that we'll say like 500 minutes into the day. So the way it works is that you have something like 500 minutes. And you ask, and you hold on.
Here. Here. Here we go.
Actually, no, never mind. Like the clock example is like way too hard. I think they get the point by just doing this.
So 1 second. So yeah, so that's the
maybe we can do like an like a modulo operator 1 for like a whole class, but I think it's enough for now.
Yeah, here. So where'd the whiteboard go? Oh, wait. Hold up 1 second. Bugging out. Okay. All right, there we go. So we want you guys to keep in mind the basic idea, which is modulus is used in order to find out the remainder of a division problem. And if I get back to my drawing, so say we do, if you remember from basic elementary school, we have 3 divided by 2. Well, I can't really write on this whiteboard because through the cursor, but imagine that's a 2. We have 3 divided by 2. You would usually write 1, remainder 1. Well, this is where modulus comes in place, because modulus tells us the remainder. So if we do now 3 mod 2, what we're being outputted with is 1, because the remainder of that division problem is 1. So say like another example, if I clear this up really quickly. So say we have another division problem. Say we have 7 divided by, or so let's do mod directly. Say we have 7 mod 3. Well, what do you guys think the answer is going to be here? Remember, it's the remainder. So 3 goes into 7 twice, fully. So this is going, if we're doing a division problem, it will be 2 remainder 1. So what's the answer going to be? Let's see if the chat. Yep, Pranav, Vishnu, good job. It's going to be 1, because the remainder is 1. Now, we'll do one final problem. Say we have 12 modulus 3. Now, 12 divided by 3 is perfect. 3 goes into 12 4 times, which is why the remainder is 0, right? Meaning 12 mod 3 is 0. So hopefully that makes sense. Just remember that at the end of the day, it's a division problem where the answer to a modulus problem is the remainder of the division problem. So let's hop on back over to the actual website to put this into application. All right, so now that we understand how mod and modulus works, let's actually put it into use. So we want to print out our number variable whenever it is divisible by 2. Well, simply all we got to do now is do number. The modulus sign, guys, is the percentage sign on a computer. So if you just do shift number 5, you should get that sign. 2, and then if a number is divisible by 2, the number must yield a remainder of 0. So we're going to be checking if the remainder is 0, then we know at the end of the day that we have an even number. And simply we'll just print out, how about we say even number colon, and then we'll do some string combination like that. We'll print out the even number. All right, so how about we execute this piece of code? Oh, wait, and there's going to be a once. All right, so we have a error. Oh, that's because so since this is a number, guys, we have to convert it to a string. And before we execute the piece of code, there's one vital thing we're forgetting in a while loop. That being, we're not changing the actual variable. Well, remember, since this is a while loop, the variable is not going to change automatically like in a for loop, which is why we manually have to enter this line of code. So we have to decrease the value of our number variable. So we'll say number equals number minus 1. And what this piece of line of code is equivalent to is it's subtracting 1 from the variable. So it's at 100. Our variable will go through the logic of if it's divisible by 2, which 100 is. So we should see the variable 100 being printed out. And then it'll subtract 1. And then the loop runs all over again with the number 99 now. Is 99 divisible by 2? No. So then it subtracts 1, goes to 98, and so on and so forth. So if we run this piece of code now, we now see all the even numbers between 0 and 100, 0, not 0 because it's exclusive, but 100 till 2 being printed out. And as we can see, there are no odd numbers because we correctly used our modulus statement in checking if the remainder was 0.
Bear in mind that we could do this with any number. For instance, we could do modulo 3, and it will print all the numbers that happen to be divisible by 3.
Yep. Let's put that into play. Divisible by 3. So now all we did was simply change our print statement and change the actual condition. We're now checking if any number, when divided by 3, if it yields or gives us a remainder of 0, we'll print it out. So we should see numbers like 96, 93. Let's see. There we go. We can now see all the numbers which are divisible by 3 being printed out from 100 to 1. And similarly, if I change this to 10, guys, we can see numbers like 90, 80, 70, 60. All those are being printed out as well because when divided by 10, they give a remainder of 0. And as always, guys, we will be posting these snippets of code to the Google Classroom if you have any questions as well. All right.
All right.
So, Andrew, you want to go over the list?
Certainly.
You want to go over arrays and lists?
Say we had a list like this. Have number like, let's actually say like 0. Now let's actually see if we can put all the numbers from our loop into this list. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this list. I'm just actually not going to call it list. Just like take this list. We'll call these, let's say, divisible numbers. And I should simplify this to like div numbers. And just like make that a list. Just say like put in 0 for now. We'll add later. So let's actually uncomment this loop real quick. And let's see if we can get numbers into this list via this loop. Now, we are familiar with this print statement, but we are not going to be printing the number this time. We are going to be adding it to the list. And in fact, there is a way to add a number to a list. Do you know if it's push or append in this one?
I believe it's append with Python. And I think it's push with JavaScript, right? Yeah.
It varies from language to language. Some adding things to the end of the list. Right now, I'm just trying to remember what is for Python, but the particulars aren't very important. What we know is that for the numbers divisible by, let's say, actually it's 4, those numbers will be added to the div numbers list. Now, to make sure that we actually did it correct, we are going to have to loop through each item in that divisible numbers list. So let's actually do that. Let's write down div num for the actual item in the list. So for div num in div numbers. I'm going to let people catch up to that because that was a bit.
Andrew Coleman.
Yes. I'm sorry. I've been programming too much in other languages, so I'm using brackets again. Pranav says something about like what is the Google Classroom. Could you explain that to him real quick, Rian?
Yeah. So Pranav, over the past 2 months, we've been using the Google Classroom to communicate with you guys every week. After every session, we post a video link to the record session along with a recap and screenshots and links to the actual material. The code, 1 sec, we have a slide on this, so the code should be somewhere right here. I thought you were Pranav. I thought I saw your name. Okay, that's weird. Here is the code. We'll drop in the chat as well. All right, let's go back.
All right, so I believe everybody's caught up on this for loop thing. So let's actually do the task of printing those numbers out. So print, we are very familiar with that. We'll say divisible by 4. And I'm gonna let people type out that divisible by 4 statement. I'm just gonna write down div num. And when you're ready, please say in the chat that you are ready to see that. When you're ready, say when you're complete with that piece of code. All right, Pranav says he's ready. Vishnu says he's ready. Yes, yes, I do. Thank you. Again, I have been coding a lot in other languages, so that tends to mess up when you switch to a different language. But no play, no foul. Yeah, so I believe we will be ready to do this right now. So let's actually execute right now. So just as we are, let me actually remove this 0 and execute. So that was successful. We managed to take all the numbers from 100 to 0 exclusive, take those numbers that are divisible by 4 and append them or add them to the div numbers list. And then finally, we were able to print it out. And of course, you can do this with a lot of other combinations of numbers. You could do divisible by 5. You can even offset it and say it's like divisible by 5, but actually the remainder is 1. So let's actually see that right now. 96, 91, see how it's like plus 1, 95, 1 added to 90, 1 added to 85, etc. So that is an example right there. Rand, would you like to go on with that?
Yeah, so we can see how we can actually loop over list, guys. And in this case, we use it to access each different value in our list of divisible numbers. And we can print that out. How about we go over one more example with a string list. Let's comment that code out. And how about now we create a list of sports. So we'll call it sports list. Set equal number to brackets. We'll add sports like, we'll add basketball, we'll add soccer. Oh. We'll do baseball. And we'll add hockey. Now I'm going to be doing an example of how we can check if an item exists in a list. So now we have our list with different sports, and they're in a string format. But we want to check, say, how about we create a separate variable called search sport. This is the sport we're going to be searching for, and we'll say we're looking for the sport of baseball. Of course, in quotation marks. Once we have that, now we want to check if baseball, our sport which we're searching for, exists in our sports list. How do we do that? Well, we loop over. So how about we create a...
Just like a suggestion, could we actually put it in a function so that we can do like a return thing?
Sure, yeah. How about, we haven't done that today. So how about we organize our code even better and use a function. In this case, in Python, it's a def. So how about, guys, if we remember what we got to do, so we'll do def. That's how we create our function. We'll call this sports search. And open parenthesis, close parenthesis, colon. And then we can simply just tab on over this code to meet the indentations.
Should probably make like a list and like a search value as like parameters.
I thought we're going to do that in Java. We're not going to do it here, remember?
Sorry, what?
Are we going to do parameters, right? Because remember, that's like the whole new...
Have you done parameters for Python yet?
No, we're not.
Okay. Well, I guess we can go on.
Next. Yeah, so parameters will be coming in next week, but if you want to learn more about those, you can hop on over to the JavaScript session for today, guys. But anyways, so now we're searching for the baseball sport. Well, remember, we got to loop over our sports list, and then we'll compare using some logic to see if our third sport actually exists. So how about instead of using this type of for loop, we'll use the range type of for loop. Let's see how that goes. So how about we do for okay, actually, I think it'd be easier if we just use this type of for loop. So we'll say current sport in sports list, because remember, sports list is the name of our list, colon. And now we got to use some logic to see if the current sport is what we actually are looking for. So we'll do some logic. We'll do if the current sport is equal to the sport we're searching for, then we'll print out your sport of, and then we'll just drop the name of the sport, exists. So now we can check if the sport we're looking for actually exists in our list. So if we want to run this piece of code now you might notice if I hit execute, nothing is going to be printed. Well, that's because we haven't called our function. So let's do that really quickly. We have to go outside of the indentations of the function, write the name of the function with the parentheses, and now since we're calling the function and we hit execute, we should see your sport of baseball exist. Some space, if it's that spacing issue, there we go. We can see that our sport of baseball exists because baseball was present inside our sports list. All right. Alrighty, guys. So for next week, we will be learning about parameters and booleans, some new terminology, and we will be going to parameters in our JavaScript course in a couple of minutes. And one quick reminder, remember to sign up as the new course name, that being Intro to Programming. We will drop the link to the direct sign up link in the Google Classroom if you can't find it. And as usual, we hope that you guys had a good time, learned a lot of new things and a lot of cool things, and hopefully you've been enjoying the past 2 months. And yeah, we'll hope to get you guys on our next course, that being Intro to Programming, next week. Take care. See ya.
Thank you for coming.